Hello, everybody, and welcome to Social Selling Hour, episode number 31 on this December 29th. So we can definitely say this is the last episode of the inaugural year, 2014, of Social Selling Hour. How are you doing today, Rachel?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm actually kind of missing your normally colorful background. Looks like where are you?
Yes, I know. I feel as though I need a whiteboard, and I don't even have like my new chair that I got for
Where's your
Christmas.
books?
I know I don't have my books to show off or have fall off the case. I'm in Northern Virginia visiting family. Been out here for most of the month. I will be back in Arizona for our first episode of 2015, but I am doing the family thing. I know you got the family thing going as well today, so I think that's kind of the theme as we're kind of kicking off or recapping 2014, and we don't have a guest today. It's kind of just you and I talking. I know we've done probably 5 or 6 episodes like that, which I think is always fun, and welcome everybody from the Twitters. I know I only have one monitor today, so my multitasking might be a little bit limited.
And the stream looks super busy. I'm guessing no one is working today. Am I the only one who's officially on the clock?
Yeah,
I'm actually curious to take a quick poll.
Yeah, let's see who's going on. So I know we actually have Erica from Switzerland jumping in today. So I think she's going to win the award for the most remote, furthest global visitor today. I know we have a couple people usually tuning in globally that like to, around the world, make it a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's all of my regulars. I see Dom, I see Kristen, I see Vidar. Great to see you, Vidar. My pal Ron. Fun stream today.
Yep. So I know we've kind of teased people about some news, but
relentlessly.
So I think there's been multiple posts about some changes and news that we have going on. But I think it's interesting. We talked about this episode being the recap episode of 2014, but also some previews for 2015, some other news that we have in the works, some exciting stuff. But I think before we get into that, I think we had kind of talked about it before. We went to in what really we built this community for is to get the community engagement and kind of chat and talk to everyone. I think we wanted to kind of drive a couple questions, and then we'll kind of lead into the news as well as some recapping and some previews. Does that sound good?
Sounds perfect. So I'm going to throw the first one at you. So I know we talk about this a lot on Social Selling Hour, and I'm just listening to your new podcasts and your other talks. This is a hot topic. So to kick it off, what does the term social business mean to you, Brian?
So I love that question, and it's probably it probably means something completely different to me now a year ago, than it would have a year ago. 2013, what I would have thought social business was. Not only was I had a different job, a different title, a different company, a different industry. I didn't have this chat. I didn't have any Twitter chat. I didn't host any chat. I had no podcasts. So actually, I think part of what social business means to me is the ability to utilize community and embrace change, which is kind of what I just kind of wrapped up with what I've been dealing with in social business. We both also kind of have that in what we do. We both work from home and work from anywhere. So the ability to be social as a business, also be parents, have interruptions at any time we may choose. So social business to me really means it's from employees, it's internal customers as well as external customers, and the ability to be globally connected. So what does social business mean to you?
Well, I guess for me, it's just kind of more of a holistic approach to business and truly coming full circle. And obviously, like you mentioned, leveraging community, internal and external, and really embracing transparency, which I think is kind of the struggle that most businesses are having becoming a true social business, is embracing, as not just their employees' transparency, but as a company. So whether what you choose to share, your behavior of your CEO, your financials, however, how far you want to take it. I think that kind of, in the spirit of being truly social, that's part of it. And I think a lot of, traditional companies that have been around for a long time, that's the biggest struggle.
Yeah, I think all businesses have always been social, but to be a truly a social business, you have to actually like embrace it and be prepared for it. It's funny. I see Vidar jumping in there saying, "Don't worry, Rachel, you're not the only one." He's in startup mode, of course, over there at Metal, and so he's of course working today. I see Daniel jumping in there. We got a nice shout out from Ben Phillips saying social selling hour has been the coolest Twitter chat around with the Sim Hangout as well. So Ben, thank you for the kind words. And I think part of what with social selling hour, with our SS hour that we've had now 31 episodes on. I think one of the most underlying thing, no matter who our guests were, so we had Tamara McCleary talking about relationships. We had John Golding kind of walking us through the sales funnel. And every single time, I'd say the biggest theme of every of those 31st episodes was trust, which I think is funny because if we were talking about social selling or social business or employee advocacy, the common thread across all of them really is trust. And I think it comes down to what you were saying about transparency. And I have a soapbox actually on our podcast that I co-host with Daniel Newman. I just went off on a tangent on that on a recent episode on there's a difference between transparency and oversharing. And so when someone's
Completely.
scared of a social business, they say, well, we don't want to embrace transparency because we're not going to share every time we do everything. And that's not really what transparency is, and it's partially not what a social business is. I know a couple people just jumped in the feed. Vincent Orlek, one of my buddies who I used to actually work with a year ago. I was actually working alongside of Vincent, but I liked Vidar's comment here. Social business to him means less phone, more Twitter and LinkedIn, and then behold, more phone. And I actually think that's kind of a good way of summarizing it, because it's being a social business doesn't really mean everything happens in social media. I think it means more that we're socially connected no matter what we're doing, and that's if it's building communities. We have people here joining us around the world. A true social business can't be a social business unless they embrace the community as a whole.
Completely agree. And I know, I think I've told you and maybe the community over the last few weeks, so I don't do New Year's resolutions, but a goal I had for myself for 2014 was to reach out to one or two new people from my community or my network each week. And this morning I talked to our mutual friend Albert Q from Facebook, and I kind of shared that with him, and it was something that he really grabbed onto. So I think we kind of missed that step, and what Vidar said about talking on the phone more, that's a huge part of it. Like in what you say, look into the eyeballs. Like you can be super friendly and you build these really amazing connections with people online, but until you meet face to face or at least via Skype or a Hangout, you are missing that final piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and actually it's funny. Chris Barros, one of our community guys on Twitter, just jumped in and said, "Hey everyone, still on vacation. Sorry for being late. Was dealing with a hellacious customer service experience." And I think that's kind of funny. It's kind of fitting for this social business discussion because, I think of social business, and this is something that I think you and I kind of struggled with when we first came up with this Twitter chat, is that I think of a social business and social selling really being a collaborative effort with customer service, with your sales team, with your marketing team, with your community team, and that to me was more of a social business. And we've kind of we've had some really cool guests where we talked content, where we've had Vidar on, one of our guests from a curation perspective. We've had David Meerman Scott come on and talk about the evolution of sales. We've really had Daniel Newman, my business partner now, come on and kind of talk about a little bit of the millennial mindset, a little bit of the change in how businesses even think about a business being social. So I know I'm loving these answers coming in from social business and really what it means, and it's kind of I'd say it's a teaser into what our news is kind of what we're talking about for 2015 and how we're kind of recapping 2014. So I guess I want to phrase the second question towards you, Rachel, because I think you kind of opened my eyes to really what social selling is, but I've also learned in these 30 weeks what it isn't and what it's becoming. I think that's something different. So, what do we like about the term social selling? What do we don't like about the term social selling? And where do we see that evolving here over the next year?
Well, okay, so I have kind of two responses to that. So my standard response that I share with everybody when I'm asked is that I believe social selling is truly a marketing-enabled sales process. And what do I like about that? Is one, I guess, marketing, because marketing kind of always has been the social arm of a business. It's where the relationship building is done, so brand awareness takes place. What I dislike about the term social selling is probably the selling part, because if you're truly doing the activities that we all currently relate to the term social selling, it's more education and generating awareness than you're actually been selling. The selling typically will take place still offline. And I think that's where people are going wrong. I see it every day on Twitter, LinkedIn. People are jumping in like, hey, I have a product, buy it. And it's like, I don't know who you are. Like, they miss that whole, the first 10 steps of social selling, which is, you like something, you get on their radar, you build trust. So I think that's where a lot of people are going wrong. They're really latching on to selling when they should be latching on to the more of the social aspect.
No, and I think that's like spot on, and I'm loving some of the tweets coming through. Bruce jumped on there and said, a social business, there's like the idea of a vending machine sell you a drink, where a social business is like a bartender where it serves you a drink. And I actually, like the idea for, and Andrew Jenkins, also a previous guest, got on there talking about giving a little bit definition on transparency not being about breaching confidentiality. And I actually think that's an important one. My cybersecurity background, that has meant a lot. And Gary Vaynerchuk, I know who both of us are big fans of, and I regularly say that my 2014 year was transformed thanks to the book Jab, 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 Right Hook, because I really took an entire different approach to how I utilize social. And I like to think of it, and I know Daniel Newman will, I'm paraphrasing what Daniel talks about a lot, but Daniel always talks about no matter what we're doing in social, or no matter what we're doing, if it's taking someone out to golf, if it's going to a happy hour, and we're doing all of these, it's all of them are tying them to a business goal, business need, a business strategy, and that's really what social business is. And I think part of this discussion is we're educating sales teams on how to leverage social as a tool, but they also need to be working at a company that is a social business. And I think that's part of my problem with social selling, is thinking of a social selling as the easy button in a company or a culture that doesn't understand social is an uphill climb.
Completely agree. And I think, and that's been a struggle, for me personally, that my last couple of companies, despite, having a strong social presence, internally, it's still challenging to get everybody up to speed. And a lot of it is tool education, and then just the mindset, because they're salespeople, they want to sell, and it's hard to tell them, well, you maybe could have closed in 30 days, but now you're looking at like a 90-day sales cycle, and that can be a little bit discouraging. Meanwhile, they can also be engaging with 10 times as many prospects at one time, so the amount of deals that they'll actually be closing in 90 days is significantly higher. But still, there's not that short-term win that perhaps they're used to.
Yeah, and actually it's funny, we got a couple people coming through on Twitter that I really wanted to call out. Erica, who was tweeting from Switzerland, said the term social selling is unclear. People understand it differently. And I would agree 100%. I think that's partially why we created this chat. If you think about what happened when you and I kind of talked about it, and I connected with you through a tool. You were, a chief listener with a social tool. We kind of engaged, we connected, and part of it was we really wanted to provide people actionable things that they could do their job with this chat. That's one of the things that I really loved when you first kind of talked to me about co-hosting it with you, was like, we don't want to, this isn't fluff, we don't want to have the same topic every week. We want to have guests on that aren't talking about things that are a bunch of only philosophy. We want to have actions, and that's partially what the problem is. I felt this entire time is that most of the actions that we're giving people are content marketing pieces, or we're teaching them how to leverage digital and SEO, or the importance of a relationship. And really, all of those things combined are what build a great social business, more so than what makes someone a great social seller. The social selling aspect is the tool set that we're using to kind of leverage that. And I think, Andrew Jenkins jumped in, dropping a couple other ones in there. And I know Andrew, I was listening to him on a webinar a week ago, and he had a couple really good definitions on what he kind of thought social selling was moving towards in the future, and the idea that it requires culture change and there is no easy button. And part of what we're doing here, we're leveraging media to collaborate and talk with these communities, and not everyone can do the same exact thing, which doesn't mean they have to be utilizing this type of media, but you have to find ways to engage your community. And that doesn't mean that I know that Music Adam just threw on there. It says, not all industries are social. And I would question that almost all industries have a social element. It doesn't mean they all leverage social media the same way.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Dave Stein, one of our early guests and one of our most diligent supporters, that's one of his big stances on social selling, is that many of his clients aren't, whether because of the industry, perhaps you're in the petroleum industry, not particularly social yet, but if you really drill down, their employees are. So if you're looking to make that one-to-one relationship, chances are they are on Twitter, and I've actually got some case studies to prove that. So yeah, maybe the actual brands themselves don't have strong identities on social, but all of their employees are.
Yeah, and the act of being social, to the argument where, I don't require, when I'm working with people or talking to people, it's the idea that you're social, and part of it is the listening element. We talk about that being the most important part in our mind. I know you've made a living on just the listening aspect itself, and I've always said that I spend way more of my time and more of our time at Broadsuite in our company with the social listening aspect than I do with anything else. And that includes my tagline being talking fast and tweeting faster. It should be talking fast, tweeting faster, and listening more, because I really try to leverage digital, leverage SEO tools, how we implement content. So as everyone can kind of see, our theme here is really we're changing, and I really believe that my passion, what I found in 2014, was that I really love change, and I love helping people embrace change, and that's partially where this chat came from. This is partially what you and I have been doing, some projects that we're working on, where the podcast came from. So I think the element of change is not only been a theme of our guests, but it's been a theme of kind of what you and I have kind of embraced and try to teach everyone else. Like, you don't have to be an expert on digital. You don't have to be an expert in marketing. But if you need to leverage them, you need to figure out how to collaborate, where they're talking. How do I get my marketing team to give me access to some of those things? So I think overall, we've really been focusing on change and trust as an overall platform for these 30 weeks on the chat.
I agree. It's a quickly evolving space, and we embrace that continual learning mindset. So I guess with all that being said, do you want to do the big announcement?
No, you can. I'll give you the honors.
Okay, so I know we've really overhyped this, so I hope everybody is genuinely as excited as we are, and I'm just going to be like, oh, right. But after lengthy discussions and consulting our peers and mentors and Social Selling Hour, and as of right now, 1:22 p.m. Pacific, we are Social Business Hour, complete with a fancy logo and everything. And I truly hope you are all as excited as we are, because it does embrace what our long-term goals are and what we're hoping to provide you as a community.
So that's kind of the big news on that aspect, especially from the idea. I love it. I love that I would say we're leading change, and we kind of piggybacked on the CMGR Hangout that we both are big fans of by adding the Hangout element to our Twitter chat. And now I think we're driving pretty big change when we have a very active and community that we love and are thankful, and we're also transforming and changing our name. So SBizHour will now be the hashtag that we leverage and utilize for our upcoming chats. But we're also transforming our format. So we've kind of talked about that over the last couple months. Really, we wanted to give people a really, when they tune in, they can know what to expect, but at the same time, focus on where we can provide value in the community. So you want to give a little bit of background on what our plans are when it comes to the months, maybe the first couple months of 2015?
So we're going, I guess, it's not necessarily more structured, but we're really hoping that it adds more value. So for example, for this upcoming January, it's going to be discussing influencer tools. So we're pulling in CEOs from some of my personal favorite tools like Tracker, Twitterland, Metal, and kind of discussing the concept of social influence from all the different angles possible. So from really an analytics perspective, using Tracker, how do you identify them? What's the true definition of social influence? And then with Metal, how do you build your your personal social influence, or your social cred, I guess we could call it. And then at the end of each month, we'll have a panel with all of those guests for the month. So we've had a lot of success with a few panels that we've done this year. It's been some of our most trafficked YouTube videos and our highest live participation on Twitter. So we're going to kind of expand on that and make that the new norm. And for me, it's very exciting. So I hope everybody's excited as me.
And the funny part is, I would say that if you don't embrace change, like I preach change. I really do love and believe in the power of change. But if you're not willing to embrace it and believe it, I think it's a Seth Godin quote where it talks about, one of the biggest problems with people with change is usually they change too late, right? So we had our best 2 weeks of Social Selling Hour. We trended on Twitter back-to-back weeks, and the very next Twitter chat, we're changing our name. We're rebranding. So if that doesn't really show that we believe that this is a transformation change, and we're not saying really the fundamental elements of our community are changing, but really we want to help educate people on what a social business is and how social selling leverages a social business. And we believe we have the platform, the guests, the community to actually make that happen. I see lots of people coming in and saying congratulations in the Twitter feed. We couldn't be more excited because both of us are giddy to help other people learn these new elements. And one of the things that I know people are going to ask is, well, where does social selling fit in there? And we've already have social selling guests lined up. We have guests that are influencer marketing lined up. We have ones that are digital focused, tools focused. And really this is just going to broaden our scope that we can hopefully provide more value for the community in the long run. So I think on that note, I think one of the things that I think is a fun one is I would love to hear our communities, people that are watching and listening, and Rachel, I'll kind of frame this to you, is what are your favorite, I'd say, social selling memories as well as social memories of 2014? As a year, I think we did 31 episodes of a Social Selling Hour. So every Monday, 31 Mondays. You have to look at my poor mug there's 31 Mondays, just about 31. I think I might have missed one or two. But so what were some of your favorite memories, social media-wise, engagement-wise, social selling hour-wise?
My favorite that comes to mind right now is actually in regards to one of our guests. So the way that Guillaume and I from Scoop It connected was basically through the act of being social and engagement. I mean, he commented on a post that I put on Millennial CEO. I then researched him. We started a dialogue on Twitter. He became a guest. He became a friend. And I think that's a perfect example of how social business is done. So for me, that was it was truly educating by example. It was proof that, I'm up here every week telling people the way I do things, but that was actually, you could see the result and the success from those activities.
And I think that's an awesome part. I think it's actually interesting how you and I kind of connected because I wanted to leverage a tool that you were working on, and then we both left those companies, started new companies, so we kind of embraced the change. But one of the common threads, and I give a shout out, some love to Vidar being in the chat. He's been a guest. He's been in our chat. His team has been in there multiple times. Is that we were both leveraging that tool, wanting to utilize a tool, and that tool kind of is also kind of one of the things that I think segues the social business element. My personal biggest memory of 2014 and was actually when I was named Social Business Top 25 by IBM and Economist. It transformed my appearance on the scene. I was kind of catapulted into some of the names that I always was learning from day to day. And one of those big elements was like someone like Vidar. We had David Meeran Scott. A couple weeks ago, we had the back-to-back Jims, both Jim Clausen and Jim Keenan coming on the show. And these are people that, I mean, and I guess we can give our secret. How do you go about? And Rachel, I give you a lot of the credit for not only seeking out a lot of the guests, but being the one that gauged it. I mean, what's the magic recipe that you get these amazing speakers and guests, and it's not payment because we don't pay anybody, at least not yet, right? But how do we get these amazing guests on here? Because I think that's one of my favorite memories is that we have these names, these big people that I've been reading their books and learning from, and the secret way that we get them as guests is what?
Well, I stalk them, but it's to make this sound a little fancier. I guess for me, a lot of it is social listening, and I'm a big proponent of right time communication versus real time. So, when you're talking about that for customers, is kind of jumping in before they know they have a problem. And to put that into the influencer perspective, I read a lot. So I'm all, if there's someone that I want to be a guest, I'm out there commenting on their posts. I'm following them on Twitter. I'm watching their webinars. So when I do reach out, they know who I am. So I'm not like that stranger like, hey, you want to be on my show? They knew who I am. We're already connected on LinkedIn. And it feels like friends when we finally get to, the Hangout or Skype stage. It's like what you always say, it's the handshake to the hug. So it's always a warm touch.
And I think that's kind of the, I'm loving some of the things going on in the chat as everybody's kind of giving their, walk down memory lane. And I will fully admit that I have, when I think about, what's transformed my career, what we're doing today, I remember I was a big podcast fan, and I spent almost the entire 2014 studying podcasts, and finally launched one in 2015, the last month of 2014 with Daniel, called Smack Talk. But one of the things that was along that way was finding new Twitter chats, and I was always a Twitter chat fan. But I think one of my favorite memories is, and I'm seeing some people come through here, is like when I saw brands that had listened and followed these Twitter chats, and all of a sudden embraced and used Twitter chats as a way to grow their community. And I give a big shout out to MoviStream. MoviStream. Movi jumped into our chat as a guest, actively jumping in there. Never once did they come to us and say, you have to be using our platform. You need to be using our video messaging service. And because of that, they embraced the community. They embraced Twitter chat. So one of my favorite memories, I think, is we were, as a chat as a whole, like everyone that does a Twitter chat, everyone that does these hangouts, we are changing the way brands engage with these communities. Movi being a great example. Metal, Scoop It, another one of the tools that we're both big fans of. Buffer having Buffer Chat. I remember Buffer Chat's very first chat. I jump in there, and I know Nicole was kind of nervous she had kind of pinged me and it's like, hey, give me some tips and tricks on how to make Buffer Chat work. And Buffer has an amazing community, and really all I had to do was start that fire, and it went, it blew up as one of probably the biggest chats that are on Twitter. And I think watching brands transform social, especially Twitter chats, from being talking at to talking with is probably one of my favorite memories of 2014 as well. And and a lot of it goes to these great people that we have in the community, people that are kind of talking about it right now. With Dom Garrett just kind of gave a shout out to CMGR Hangout. That's another one of the hangouts that you and I have been on multiple times. We love Sherry and Brew. Those guys over there do a great job. I'm actually hosting in late January. I'm hosting an hour during Community Appreciation Day. One of the hours I'll be bringing some guest panels on there, and really that's just bringing more attention to the importance of social and community. And I think that's an exciting element of social. One of the other things was, I was curious what you thought about this, but I love the World Cup element of social. I thought that was the first time where I felt like a sporting event actually got it. Because the Super Bowl had retarded hashtags, and I say retarded, but I mean hashtags that people would look at me when I was at the Super Bowl event and party, and they'd say, well, Brian, what's that hashtag going to get to them? I'm like, well, it's useless. It's going to die after today because it's something that, well, A, it takes up too many characters, and every character in my mind is important, but B, it really had no long-term value. And the World Cup kind of transformed that. I mean, one of my favorite things of the World Cup was leveraging Snapchat to view the World Cup elements that are happening all around that venue, and that was one of the biggest ones for me. So I guess before we jump into the next question, what was your, I guess, one telling moment of social that you remember from the year?
Well, I think the World Cup definitely stands out because I think the term tweet storm was generated from their use of social and Twitter specifically. And it really kind of evolved everyone's use of a hashtag. I think when that came about, we were doing the funny hashtags, and it still is pretty prevalent on Facebook. You do the I heart something something when you're trying to be funny. But it encouraged the continual use of a hashtag for an event. So it carries on. I mean, I'm sure there are still people using that hashtag discussing the upcoming World Cup. It's an ongoing conversation, and I think that was really cool. social media in general, I think for me, one of the shining moments, and it's kind of an ongoing thing, I mentioned it in last Friday's Community Manager Hangout, is just how important community managers are. And I really feel in 2014 that was made more of a priority for a lot of businesses, particularly ones that we kind of admire. So whether it is, a community like Buffer or Scoop.it, they really put a huge amount of value on their community managers and credit them with the growth and strength of their brand. And I think that's only going to become better as in 2015 and beyond.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm getting lots of great things in here. It's kind of cool, like, our Social Selling Hour community is talking about all their favorite memories, and I know Terry, I know Dom, I know a lot of the guys, Chris, they all actually started their own Twitter chat, since Social Selling Hour started. And I think that's so fun that not only did they start their own chat, we both participate in their chats, but they've also joined our chat regularly. They've been, leaders in our community, and the guests that we've had on has been, an interesting thing. And, to me, people are now really embracing the community aspect. So I think that is definitely a theme and excitement. And really, we're getting business leaders, CEOs, all the way, to community managers. We've had some of the people that over there from West Virginia University in the master's program that I was working with them on a couple of things, and they jumped in a couple of our Twitter chats and were finding value. For me, when people are finding value on social media or on Twitter, or the 1 hour they spend a day in that Twitter hangout or a Twitter chat or hang chat, we have to come up with a name with what we're doing here. But maybe that's in 2015. Maybe we'll have to crowdsource that. But part of this, I love the data aspect of social as well.
Yeah, and I think, speaking of community, I think it's really cool that we can have such a broad range of industries participating. We have everyone from they're solopreneurs, they're helping out their family with the business, all the way up to the CEOs of large SMBs, and then just the age range. I know we have some teenagers, college students participating regularly, all the way up to Generation Y or whatever came before that, baby boomers. So I think that it's really cool that everyone is finding value equally. It definitely inspires me to keep going.
So, I think for the next question we wanted to bring in there is we want to ask the community what their favorite, we're talking about recapping 2014, and what was their favorite moment of Social Selling Hour that we've had so far. And I kind of always feel like it's kind of weird because, to me, every Monday, I'm pretty passionate to begin with, and thankfully that you guys can't see the spit that ends up on my monitor because I get so excited. I want to jump out of my seat, even when I'm at my brother-in-law's house now. But, part of it has been, being able to connect and have Jim Clausen, a guest from IBM that I kind of knew and engaged with outside of Social Selling Hour completely. It was a completely different channel. It was a different program that I was working on, and having those worlds meet and collide, and kind of have a lot of the IBM community that I worked with on a day-to-day basis also embrace, leverage, share, join Social Selling Hour. To me, that was one of those things where we're transforming this. It's a community 24/7. We have 1 hour that we join together, and we actively jump on the megaphone to promote and bring guests in. But the fact that SS Hour and hopefully SBiz Hour, our new hashtag, the fact that it's used every day throughout the day, and we both leverage social listening tools to see that, to me that's one of my favorite moments when I started seeing people using the hashtag outside of the hour to have conversations. I was like, wow, this is really making a difference. So that was one of the big things for me. So what about you? What was the favorite moment of Social Selling Hour?
Mine, I guess, is more, it kind of actually leads into the next question, but I spent not this past weekend, but the one before, going through all of our episodes, and it was really amusing to see how far that just the two of us in our format have come over the course of this year. So when we started, we did have video, but it was a video only of the guest. And then we kind of quickly merged that to more of a panel format. And then just, the questions, I think we got a little bit more hard-hitting midway through the year. We kind of hit our stride. And I think that's when the community really took off as well, because we were talking about topics with people that the community didn't necessarily know, excuse me, but they had amazing things to say. And that's been, for me, really great. Whether we're introducing our community to people like Andrew Jenkins, who maybe people wouldn't have, found his great blog post otherwise if we hadn't, put him on camera. So that's been really pleasing for me.
Yeah, I think it's it's great. I'm loving I'm actually like it's like walking down memory lane of seeing people's comments and lots of people talking about like Jim Keenan and I finally found someone that was more passionate and more outspoken than myself, which is a good
The
thing.
whirlwind,
Yes,
or the force.
yes, yes. The four and and it's funny because the other thing that's been great and probably if someone had asked me the best part about it is our our guests are so active in our community after they're a guest. Maybe they weren't beforehand, and they have such an amazing experience. Because I mean, when you get off the Twitter, when you get off as a guest, because most of our guests don't live tweet, because this has taken us 30 weeks to master the art of multitasking and tweeting while we're both having conversations here and looking at the Twitter feed. And but for our guests, a lot of the comments that you and I get for the first time is like, yeah, I have 99 notifications with a plus sign next to it on Twitter. Like they're like, how does that happen? And and like part of that is that they show up the next week because they're so excited because of the topics. And even getting messages today on Facebook, a couple of people that were our previous guests, they messaged us like, hey, I'm on vacation. I'm not going to be there for your announcement, but I'll be following the hashtag so that afterwards I know what you guys are doing. And I was like, wow. I mean, not only does that show that the community's going the right direction, but the little venture that you and I decided to pretty much thanks to a couple Twitter chats that we both participated in, we started this little hashtag, this little chat, and now we've been able to meet and collaborate with some amazing people that I would have never had the chance to meet, let alone interview, if it wasn't for this community. Some of the people, Kristen Cardos, one of the people that really helps us on a daily basis really keep this community moving. All she doesn't even ask for anything. It's that jab, 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 right hook. She is such a fun-loving, nice person that wants to help educate and do what we're doing on video. And maybe she's not on video, but maybe that's a little teaser too that we can get her on video, because I've seen her on Movie Stream, Kristen. I've seen you do your videos on Movie Stream community. So I know you embrace the video. So maybe we'll get her on as a guest. But I love that.
We actually do have Kristen scheduled for February. She's a part of one of our peer appreciation panels with Dom. So
there it is.
She will be front and center, so she needs to do her hair.
And I think that's another one. The global aspect has been a big one for me. I know Mark Longbottom. He jumps in our Cloud Talk, the other Twitter chat that I host, and it's always amazing. He's sitting on the bus in a foreign country on the way home, watching and listening and participating on Twitter chats, and I'm able to learn from him, and he's doing that remotely. I think that's just kind of a cool aspect. So, that's also been a big element for me, is really seeing the fact that when we're teaching people to embrace social, but we're also I'm not wasting my time. People will say like, how do you find time to do a lot of other things? And prioritization's a big one, but one of my big elements is I want to teach people how to use technology and automation so they have more time to engage. And I think that's partially where a lot of when someone tells me like, Brian, a Twitter chat that you put on your calendar transformed my career. Like, to me, like, that's value that I don't need a dollar sign to that. Like, that keeps me wanting to update that crazy calendar that I have with all the Twitter chats, because it's adding value to other people. I think that's kind of a nice theme. And I know Ben Phillips put in here saying, the F-bombs from Keenan were one of his favorites. I know, the nice part about this is it is a no holds barred Twitter chat, that's for sure.
Yeah, Keenan was by far one of our most popular. So, and I know he's very grateful for it. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, I encourage you all. I've watched it twice, which I haven't even watched any of our other prior ones halfway through. So that says it all right there. So Brian, I know you're big on personal growth. What was your favorite personal growth moment of 2014?
So, one of the things for me was I like to say, and I wrote about this in a blog post when I decided to leave my enterprise job. I spent about 3 years ago, I took a pivot from my career, and I left an industry. I was in cybersecurity with a security clearance, probably at the top of my game at that, where I was loving what I was doing, but it wasn't really fueling my passion. And I really thought my passion was more technology and less an element of technology. So I pivoted, left that career, went to a technology startup, and I realized once I was there that I was more chasing my purpose rather than finding my passion. So my personal growth, I think, was actually finding and embracing that I love change. I love teaching it. I love leading it. I love learning about it and studying it. So that's probably was my biggest memory.
Yeah, that was a big change, but I think it's paying off for you.
Yeah, I can say that for sure. Of course, now I'm losing my voice and tearing up because it's been a great year for me. I can't say that enough. So what about you? What was your personal social media personal growth moment that was a big impact for you in 2014?
Well, mine I think is a lot related to this chat, and I know we talk a lot throughout the day, and I panic every Monday before we start this call. So being on video on a large scale is a kind of a big personal growth moment for me, and something that I'm working towards, and even taking that to the next level next year. I have some speaking engagements lined up, so I'm going to completely freak out when those get closer. But yeah, I like to really push myself, and I think I've been in my comfort zone the last couple of years. So kind of expanding on my talents, and hopefully they pay off. But the success that we've seen from this chat and people, not minding my giggles and funny faces every Monday, I'm taking that as a positive sign.
Yeah, I think I think that's for both of us. I mean, I spent a lot of 2013 trying to figure out what I would tweet, what I would share, what I would blog, because I was focusing on what I thought other people wanted to hear me say. And 2014, I completely switched that, and I was like, I'm just going to be myself. You can unfollow me if you don't like it. You can not tune in if you don't. I think that was kind of a big moment, I think, for both of us, as well as like kind of the chat, the community. We added the Hangout elements. The Hangout didn't work one time. Like we really were opening that transparency element. And like I was giving this conversation. I was actually at a Steelers game yesterday and was talking about social media with a guy that was there, and kind of course, because I like to talk about social media even at a Steelers game apparently. But one of the things for me was he was telling me, he's like, well, he followed me on Twitter, and hopefully maybe he's listening because I actually told him about Social Selling Hour, and I told him, I was like, hey, the number of followers doesn't matter. It's like that one-to-one conversations. And he gets on there and follows me, and he says, look at all these followers you have. He's like, there's no way I could be that many followers. And I was like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pull up something. And I showed him. I was like, in December of 2013, I had less than 2,000 followers, or right at 2,000 followers. And 2014 was, I focused on being myself and trying to engage more, and my follower numbers grew to where where it was kind of something that I didn't have to focus on. It was just more being myself. And I think that's something that we can, follower count is like that vanity metrics, and I think that's a plug to your blog, that one of my favorite blogs of the year, with the vanity metrics, and you kind of did a theme of those. But I don't think I think we shift the focus from follower numbers to this new way of communities engaging and learning from each other. So I think that's part of the things for me, being I've been lucky enough now to meet some of these amazing people, and I don't think they're amazing because their number of followers. I think they're amazing because of the relationship I have with them.
So we're getting a lot of really cool tweets coming through the stream. One that stood out for me was from Madison Jones, and she said that she's learned how to really listen to people this year. No anticipation, no plotting my own words, just wholesome conversation. And I think that's an amazing step, because when you can truly listen without waiting to speak, there's a huge difference there. That's when magic truly does happen. So congrats, Madison. That's a big growth moment.
Yeah, and I think there's ones here where I love that I've had so many opportunities to take the digital experience and turn it into that hug. And like one of the, I give a shout out to Ian. Ian was someone I've been engaging with probably for 3 years on Twitter, more so than I have probably a lot of people in the industry. And Ian, I got to meet for the first time in October at an IBM event, and it was like I told him I was giddy to go there to meet him. And at the same event I met Ray Wang for the first time, and I was able to really transform these. And so in 2015, maybe Rachel, you and I will be able to meet for the first time.
I don't know. It's been a couple years now. I think we're so last year.
I think that's just another sign. Daniel, my business partner, and I, we were working as partners for 4 months before we really met. But you and I now have been co-hosts and partners for 30 plus weeks, and yet and we engaged and known each other longer than that, but we have yet to meet face to face, which probably might surprise a lot of the people that are even active in our community, because the fact that we've had the digital eyeballs is a welcome, how we embrace social business has really transformed even this partnership and relationship for sure.
Yeah, it definitely didn't slow us down. Okay, so our final question of our wrap-up, we're going to kind of look forward at 2015. I've been reading dozens of prediction posts, and some people are really on point, and I think, although 75%, I think are really playing it safe with their predictions. So I'm curious to know, Brian, of what you've read so far, what do you think will come true and what will not?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that so many people are still kind of focusing on maybe the tools and how people, and for me, I think the tools are the easy part. I can teach anybody to use a tool, and I use this quote a lot of times, is that I learn most of what I do on tools on YouTube. No one sends me to college to learn how to use these social listening tools. I get a demo, I watch someone else use it, I jump in and use it. But the big part for me is it has to start with a culture change, and I will keep saying it till everyone stops listening. But the idea of millennials has nothing to do with someone's year they were born. It has everything to do with a mindset. So every one of those predictions that talks about millennials and they're stereotyping it by an age, not a type of person that what they actually, their mindset they are, I think those are the ones that are getting it wrong, because they still don't even get what it means to have that millennial mindset. So I think maybe that's one of the things, to me, when I read them, I shake their heads, and I've been participating in a lot of them, and most of the time my focus has been on the importance of community and the fact that brands are going to embrace employee advocacy as well as customer advocacy, and they're going to turn their employees and customers into their biggest rock stars. That's my prediction, is that the rock stars of brands are no longer going to be these paid talking heads. They're going to be the employees and the greatest assets they already have today. So what about you? What are some of the ones that you are not too sure about? What's kind of your prediction there for 2015?
Well, I always have to kind of chuckle when I see people kind of saying it's going to be the year of transparency, and I think I've even said it myself. I mean, it's definitely, we're evolving, but I don't think it's not going to be next year. It's probably not even going to be 2020, because, like we mentioned, people don't really understand what being transparent means as a business. So I think the people who are kind of standing on that soapbox have to kind of break it down a little bit more and provide more actionable tips for people to follow versus just saying be transparent. It's kind of like people saying be social for the last 2 years. Like, what does that mean exactly? But one that I'm really getting behind is people taking more note of big data. It's always been there. It's not just for enterprise, it's for everybody, and really using that to hone your customer profiles and go after your ideal target customer. Because you'd be surprised, I talk to people all the time, and if you ask them, well, what's your target audience? And they're like, SMBs, and it's such a general term. It's like, no, I want you to tell me that it's like John Smith from Idaho who, he wears Levi's and he shops at Target and he likes cheeseburgers. Like, you can be so finite, and all that data is out there. You can find it by doing a quick audit on social, and there's really no excuse for any company of any size not to use that data.
No, I love that idea, especially because I've been a data geek. I mean, what I did on cyber was, mostly was using data to predict and build policies to what we were going to do to protect what people are leveraging and utilizing online. And I think data is the big one. One of my favorite events this year was IBM Insight, and the reason I loved it is it used to be IBM Big Data, and they changed the name to Insight because they added the element of cloud and they added the element of engagement and community, because data is just data without a little bit of context, a little bit of community, and leveraging the things around. So I think data is an interesting theme. I'm excited by that. I think I read today, and I watched Jay Baer's Jay Today most recent episode, and he was talking about SEO, and SEO is not being dead, but the most popular job description on LinkedIn in 2014 that was searched was data scientists. and people that are leveraging big data. And it's not just social data, but it's all kinds of data. And that's why, we started our podcast called Smack Talk, which is social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. And it's really because the four of them combined together are all leveraging data and kind of taking off with that data element. So I think the data thing is really interesting. I like Terry jumped in here and said acting on trends rather than making predictions is more important to me. And it's actually a really good statement there. I like that. It's because everyone can predict, and I think everyone gets asked what their predictions are, but really how do you take those predictions and turn them into actions will be really how people really, that's how you are a social business. It's fine that your customer service leverages Twitter, but if you didn't give your community manager that is on customer service the power to actually make a difference, give away free gift cards, do whatever you have to do, you're not a social business. You're not making a difference there. So I think the ability to act is also something that I think will be an interesting trend in 2015 as well.
And just my open letter to all authors of 2015 prediction posts, I expect you to circle back at the end of the year and explain why or why not your predictions didn't come true. Because I think, like you said, anybody can just shout them out to the wind, but you need to come back and actually validate why you said that.
And that's partially why, I give Gary Vee a lot of credit, because he'll even say on, things like Instagram, or, he'll make his predictions, and Gary will never, much like Jim Keenan, our guest, Gary Vee, well, he has no problem being bold, being out there and having his opinion, but he's the very first person that comes back and says, well, I was wrong, I screwed that up, I didn't get that correct, or do you have any idea how I've leveraged this or what I've done? And I think part of that is really, we're okay with that a human element, because we're predicting. If you could predict everything in 2015, I would prefer that you would email me and give me lottery numbers. That would be, so those of you that are guaranteeing predictions in 2015. But for everybody else, I like that idea of circling back. I also think, one of the things that I think is really transforming, and one of the predictions that I'm excited to see, is really the training aspect of people, brands, leaders, and I put this onus on anybody that believes they're a millennial mindset. If you don't believe that your boss or your leader is the problem and why your company is not social, be the one that teaches them the value. Train up, mentor up, and teach people the value of social. Don't just complain about your company not being a social business. That doesn't get you anywhere further. And I think the training aspect of social, finally being given enough credits where these brands are going to invest in training, I think that's exciting. I think leveraging podcasts to learn about social, using videos, getting on Google Hangouts more often in 2015 so that people can look in the digital eyeballs no matter where they're at. I think those are all things that these brands are going to leverage and all of a sudden get even more value out of community and social as a whole.
So we have a great tweet from John Golden, who jumped in a little late to the stream, but he says, for 2015, it'll be the year of being thoughtful, more filtering, more discerning audience, less tolerance for mindless automated content floods. And I have to say a big amen to that, because that's exactly where my mindset's at.
And actually, Chris Barrows even said there one of his big goals of 2015 was to meet more folks from Twitter chat community in person. And I think that's, to me, is the biggest theme for me in 2014. It's been a transformation in my career growth. I cannot be more blessed, but the amount of people I was able to transfer a Twitter social relationship into a face-to-face hug was crazy for me. I mean, it was almost every month I was meeting some of these people that I had long-term relationships with and meeting them for the first time. I remember, Ted Rubin was a little bit over a year ago, but the first time I met Ted, the first time I met Tim McDonald, the very first time I was meeting some of these people that I felt like we were great friends, and all of a sudden we got finally able to meet face to face. So I think that also has to be a goal in some of these predictions, is that when you build these relationships, build them and then leverage them so that you can meet in person. I give another shout out to Buffer, because Buffer is probably the tool that also allowed me to engage and schedule more so on Twitter than ever before. And Buffer has all remote employees, and yet they do quarterly or bi-quarterly events where they take everybody, the entire company, to a location. Because just because you can work everywhere or anywhere doesn't mean face-to-face collaboration and engagement isn't important anymore. And I think companies like Buffer, I mean, they're leading the edge in transparency and community and a lot of things, but I mean, that's a great example. It doesn't matter that all your employees work remote, and IBM does a really great job of this. Is, you know, when IBM gets people together, they focus on these people getting together and learning from each other. Although they've worked together for all these years, this might be the first time they're meeting face to face, and I think that's kind of a big trend in 2015 moving forward. You know, as we kind of hopefully drive change, and that change starts with our first show in 2015 will be a different hashtag. We will still love and social listen on our SS Hour hashtag probably for a long, long time because we both try our best to practice what we preach. But I couldn't be more excited. I was tweeting it a couple times today, and I had to like think about it. Which, you know, SS Hour, it comes out so quick. So hopefully we're gonna get a little bit warmed up here and get SBiz Hour flowing off of our side, you know, off of our feeds and streams. And we're also, to Chris Barrow's point, we're going to be hopefully, you know, we're going to be doing a lot more things at events, going to events, live events, hopefully also participating on some more digital events, leveraging our Hangouts in our community. So we really are looking forward to that aspect where we're going to be able to meet hopefully all of you. If it's not face-to-face, maybe it's, you know, some more community type panels where we have some of our community members on there as guests, so that we finally, you know, get to look you guys in the digital eyeballs, because eventually Rachel's gonna get tired of talking to only me on the other side. So we definitely have to bring some of those guys in there. But I couldn't be more excited about kind of giving everybody our announcement. You know, one of my, I'd say, things that Social Selling Hour has transformed for me is I get to learn from you, Rachel, every week. You've made me a better person on Twitter, on social, on pretty much everything that I'm doing. I'm not the organized person. I am not the you know, you've done an awesome job in that. So I want to say thank you for that side of kind of making me a better person. Thanks to, and we've never met in person, so that's pretty powerful.
Well, you're welcome. The honor is mine. It has truly been a joy getting to know you better over the last 31 weeks. And I definitely look forward to taking our show on the road in 2015. We do have a lot of fun events planned, and I know they're really strategically located, so I think we can plan some meetups. I've been watching the stream. I think Dom's trying to get a party going, so we'll definitely make that happen. And yeah, big things planned, and I'm happy to have you as my co-pilot.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody in the community. Have an awesome New Year's Eve, New Year's, ringing the New Year, January 1st. We'll be back that first Monday in the new year. We put out the new Twitter handle out there. We, of course, will be helping educate that. We will probably have some other news with some websites and some groups and forums and some content coming at you for the next chat, and also kind of a recap and a thank you to all of our previous guests. So once again, it was awesome. Twitter chat was flying. I'll have to catch up on a lot of the tweets and things that are going on there. But with that being said, we will see you next year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Cheers.